Everyone, hi, welcome back to VCTV, the Venture Capital TV from LATOKEN. Again, we're going to discuss a very interesting topic, and we've been discussing this topic, obviously touched base this topic quite a lot, but still this is a very, very important topic to discuss on biotech, medtech, health tech in general, covering all these different sectors, telemedicine as well. The trends of 2020 is very, very important for us to know what happened in 2020. It's going to be a flashback moment for you guys, as I said. So I have the regular speakers back on the panel who are investors in healthcare, biotech and medtech, and have got deep expertise in the areas. So they're going to share their insights with our audience today. So before I start the panel, myself, Sunny Mohanty, I'm the regional director of LATOKEN, I'm based here in Singapore. I host PCTV every day, Monday to Friday, 8 p.m. Singapore, without fail. So that's the beauty about VCTV. I get to meet these fabulous speakers, fabulous minds, great people, great opportunity to network every day, share ideas, and yeah. So because we have a community, a big community of investors and founders who are also looking forward to collaborate with you. So that's the whole idea. We try to bring them over to you so that you can start collaborating and obviously working together if possible in a way. So yeah, let's move on to the panel today. I have Kartik, Fabio, Gary, and Anuj. Welcome back. Familiar faces. How are you all today? How's everybody doing today?
Good.
I'm doing very well.
Fabulous is the way I would put it. Yeah.
I just want to make sure everybody is fine.
We're all ready.
Great, fantastic. Alrighty, so let's start with Kartik, whom I see first on my Zoom lobby. Kartik, please start with the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and absolute pleasure to be here once again. Half an hour from now, I was on one of the other shows. So I think you guys are doing a fabulous job of trying to democratize this entire venture capitalist space by bringing us closer to people who are really interested and de-intimidizing the entire experience, which is fabulous, and kudos to you. About me, I represent multiple elements. I represent a large retail business, I represent a venture capitalist panel, and I represent certain private offices which are keenly and heavily investing in certain sectors, including health space. As a disclaimer, I have certain investments in telemedicine, I have certain investments in wearables, and I have certain investments in nutraceutical space. So we'll be talking about that as we move. About the space that we are talking in, and I think we've spoken about it on a few occasions, and I would reiterate that it has accelerated at 10x to 20x pace during the pandemic space, primarily because none of us were ready for the kind of avalanche that we had to face in terms of either capacities or in terms of therapies or in terms of route to market or even in terms of cost optimization modules or in terms of even the reach for healthcare. And hence, all of us have learned a new way of doing things post the pandemic. However, the development in this space just didn't begin because of pandemic. Development in this space has been a cycle of evolution, but the cycle of evolution was restricted to large established healthcare spaces only. So large hospital chains in the Middle East have been continuously upgrading their space and upgrading the technology. Large pharmaceutical businesses have been upgrading their space. Nutraceuticals have been going deeper into understanding the anthropology of the shopping of the consumer and his lifestyle. But what has happened after the pandemic has struck is people have started venturing into healthcare, taking it away from only the curative space to curative, preventive, wellness, and lifestyle. And the elements of fitness, the element of immunization, the element of democratizing and making it accessible to everybody, and generally being in the space and continuously diagnosing yourself has become that much more important. And hence, apart from the technical and scientific developments in the space, which is about robotics and about surgical space, today, diagnostics, immunization, wellness, nutraceuticals, cosmeceutical, fitness has become far more important in the space than what it was. And that's where we continue to be invested, and that's where we continue to leverage.
Thank you, Kartik, for those insights. I think I'd agree, fitness and wellness as well. Thank you. Next, I see Fabio. Fabio, welcome back on VCTV. How are you today, and where are you dialing in from?
I'm dialing in from Italy today.
So you are back in Italy.
Yeah, I'm back in Italy.
Fantastic. Please introduce yourself to our audience. Thank you.
I'm an economist by training. I have a PhD from the University of Chicago. In the initial part of my career, I worked at the International Monetary Fund. Then I moved to the European Central Bank for the launch of the euro. Then I joined Goldman Sachs, and later I started a second life in the Arabian Peninsula, working for sovereign wealth funds and sovereign institutions in Qatar, Dubai, and in Oman, where I was the chief strategy officer and chief economist of the Oman Investment Fund. Since last year, I took a share in an investment bank, American Investment Bank, which has offices in Dubai and in Hong Kong. And what I'm doing now is to invest in startup, in technology, innovative companies, and I help them list on the US markets or to raise capitals international.
Wow. IMF, investment banking, and then startups. What a journey. Fabio, welcome.
Yeah. I lived many lives, let's put it this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that introduction, Fabio, and welcome back on BCTV. Next, I have Anuj. Welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for asking. Pleasure to be back. Introducing myself, I am a startup founder. I have started 3 startups over the last decade. Have been working as a founder for Yellowsify Technologies and LATOKEN right now. So as of this moment, I wear the hat for MedTech founder. I also work as an international partner with World Business Angel Forum, which is a G20 initiative to promote global financial inclusivity and entrepreneurship across the world. Along with it, I am working with iAngels in Israel and a family fund based out of Buffalo, New York.
Wow, entrepreneur and investor working with family fund. Wow, that's interesting mix, Anuj. And welcome back on BCTV. Fantastic. Last but not least, Gary, how are you doing today? We doing today? Gary,
I'm great. How are you? How are you today?
I am very good. Thank you. Thanks for asking. Please.
So, yeah, I'm a startup entrepreneur. I've been doing startups for 35 years. So I've done 16 companies, 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold about 17 months ago for $1.35 billion. And I also started Eva.ai, which is near unicorn status today. In fact, we just got rated higher than SAP and Workday in our category for people analytics. So we're one of the top 10 AI HR tech companies. I started with billionaire David Yang, who's my partner. I love artificial intelligence. I've written now 93 articles in the last year on AI. And with GSD Venture Studios, my company, we curate companies to go global using Silicon Valley as a port. I'm normally Silicon Valley based. Currently, I'm in Palm Beach in Florida, which isn't too bad, but it could be better. I could be back in California. But anyhow, we believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities aren't. Our job is to find incredible companies from all over the world using Silicon Valley as a port to take them out. And I'm just a country boy from Pennsylvania. So, I try to keep it simple.
Yeah. 93 articles. I'm going to look forward to the 100th one for sure soon. Thank you.
I'm trying to get them out by the end of the year. I'm actually on a push right now. I've got 3 this week, another 1 and 2 coming out in Forbes, and my goal is to hit 100 actually.
There you go. Fantastic. Thank you, Gary. And welcome back, all of you, on another episode of VCTV. It's a healthcare episode, and I think healthcare not only is evolving every day as the pandemic is shifting, a lot of things are happening. We see in the news, we read in the news, vaccinations, but we just want to hear from the speakers today what's really happening as per them. So I would like to ask you, like I'll go with Karthik first, give us a flashback moment, like what happened in 2020, what have we seen so far, and what has changed so far, and so what we foresee what's going to span out in 2021. We have a few more days. We hit 2021, and we would like to know your perspectives on that. Karthik, over to you.
Multiple trends emerging in this space. Primarily in the technology space, this business is still ruled by a lot of large businesses, large entrepreneurs, and large foundations. But the business is slowly moving into a completely new space as well, with a lot of new economy, new setup, or new business ideas, or new business foundations coming into the place. Primarily with telemedicine at one end of the spectrum, AI ML-led businesses on the other end of the spectrum, changing the way the entire telemedicine space is operating, and moving into a lot of newer routes, or moving into a completely different side of business, which is the medical transcription, documentation, blockchain-led supply chain and drug manufacturing or drug control routes. I think one side of business is that, and the other side of the business primarily, which is where we seem to be significantly interested, is the wellness and the lifestyle space, be it wearables, be it home fitness, be it improvement in regime, be it the diagnostics, be it the radiation and imaging space, where we see a lot of developments and trends coming in. And the third and the most important element is that e-commerce or aggregator-led platforms, which means hospitality and hospital management platforms coming in, medical tourism as one of the trends that is emerging in certain parts of the world, elective surgeries being routed through aggregators in certain parts of the world, especially in subcontinent India and the Middle East, are multiple trends emerging, but all of them ultimately are culminating into two large buckets. One is the established businesses, typically like the hospital chains, which are continuously pumping in millions of dollars to upgrade and stay ahead of the curve. And the second is the allied industries, which is either the pharmaceuticals or the medical transcription and support or the wellness industry, which is growing into its own ecosystem in multiple layers. That's the trend that we see. But as we move forward, I would be specifically speaking about telemedicine and wearables and wellness space, because that's where we as a business have had heavy investments.
Absolutely. Telemedicine is the space to be in, especially if you are in the healthcare industry. Thank you, Karthik. Next, I have Fabio. Hi, Fabio. Same question. 2020 is getting over. What insights can we have from you?
Certainly biotech, medtech, healthcare in general has been, for obvious reason, under the spotlight. It has been for several years, but this pandemic could be the real launching pad for a revolution in healthcare, which is, by the way, I mean, most people know, but some might not. Healthcare is one of the major components of GDP. In many countries, has a weight that exceeds that of manufacturing. So it's a big chunk of the economic activity in several countries. It is is probably the next big thing, as we always, the next big thing that we are always constantly looking for. Now, what has, in my view, been a major game changer in this year pertains to the regulatory and approval process.
Right.
For several years, number of people, number of high-profile academics, businessmen, entrepreneur have been criticizing the huge expenses necessary to introduce new drugs, new treatment, new devices, and the extreme rigor that agencies like the FDA have displayed when it comes to approve new drugs and how can I say, make available the innovation to the general public. With the rapid approval of the vaccine, anti-COVID vaccine, especially if it will be successful, as I think it will be, so very few side effects, very few negative repercussions, so on and so forth, the whole approval regulatory process will be under scrutiny. And I hope that the simplification of such process will pave the way for an explosion of innovation in this area, which could be, by the way, one of the real stimulus for the recovery of the economy battered by the pandemics.
Right, great. So Fabio shares his insights about regulations, touching on that particular aspect. Very rightly said, Fabio, it's very important. Thank you so much for sharing that opening remarks. And next I have Anuj on my lobby. Anuj, over to you. Anuj, we can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Perfect, yeah. So yeah, when you're talking about medicine, you have to realize that the history of medicine is as old as humanity itself, and doctors have historically been given the title next to God for a reason. Now, however, coming in from the 20th century to 21st, we are just a couple of decades into this century, and yet the technology and the innovative products that we have would no longer be considered a modern miracle. You have your smartwatches that monitor your EKG, that monitors your pulse, and can even detect if you fall down or are unable to respond in a situation. So all this technology, all this advancement is leading to a point where it's easy for us to question what's next. Where do we go from here? Telemedicine is not a new technology. Telemedicine companies have been coming up for a decade now. I personally, ever since I've been in the startup sector, ever since I started my first venture, I've had companies pitch me saying, hey, we are developing this product which will help us connect remote villages to doctors. We want to do remote consultation for them and then basically bridge that gap for them. The reason why none of them has advanced to a level is because there was no pandemic. Pandemic has opened up that door. It's given that opportunity that these companies can actually make an impact. But while we are dependent upon these innovative engineers and these really smart tech guys, let's not lose sight about what's next after the pandemic. What happens then? Do we go back to the status quo where again telemedicine companies become just something that pop up now and then? To address that, or the solution that I personally see in this is just one word, which is personalization. Healthcare in itself has the personalization factor in healthcare has been a dream for a while. DNA mapping for the entire human genome. It was the world's largest biological collaborative project across the world. It started off in 1990 and took 13 years before it was completed. Now, even before we knew the entire DNA, even before we had mapped the entire DNA, the first targeted cancer therapy was actually in 1970s. It was a drug named tamoxifen, which was acting on estrogen receptors. So we have known for a while that for the 19th century and for the 20th century, broad spectrum sword was going to be the key, that it's what's going to help us kill those bacteria, make sure that we can save as many lives as possible. Penicillin, in just the last 92 years after its discovery, has saved billions of lives. Comparatively, entering into 21st century, and as we are moving forward, we will need a scalpel rather than that sword. We would need the scalpel of a precise approach that in a critical care situation, if you're born with, if you have ALS or if you have type 1 diabetes, rather than addressing it with a broadsword of insulin or just regular drugs, you have to have a targeted approach where you can personalize drugs for them. If not personalize a drug, at least personalize a care for them so that a person can be looked after as they like, not as we think what's right for them.
Yeah, great perspective. Anuj, I can hear myself, but thank you for putting yourself on mute. I think Karthik is investing in telemedicine, and Anuj thinks telemedicine might not be around. So, I mean, we can have this discussion later on, a little bit after I finish with Gary.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Gary, over to you. What's your insights about the healthcare sector as a whole in 2020? What happened and how is it going to shape up? Thank you.
Well, I mean, look at where we are today. I mean, this COVID situation compared to where we were in April is at record levels, right? Shutdowns. So and I've said at the beginning, this is following the pattern of the Spanish flu in 1918. Well, yes, we've got vaccines coming, and it's encouraging, but still we've got time. And then there's economic impact. So telemedicine. So the trend, if you look before the pandemic, 71% of the patients in North America considered telemedicine at that time, right? It's efficient. I remember, before the pandemic, you have to come into my office. Now it's a whole lot easier to see a doctor. So I think it's going to stay. I mean, we've created an extremely efficient and effective system. And I've said this many times, Sunny, 5 years ago, when I was one of the first Zoom users, and I would send a link out to my friends, people would say, why would I use this? I have Skype, right? Yeah. Now there's like 400 million daily users of Zoom. And Eric went from, being an engineering type to worth almost $20 billion today. So, I mean, our lives have fundamentally changed. Then there's some very interesting technologies out there. And Eva, the company that I co-founded, came out of some of these types of technologies, scanning technologies. So imagine there's a company called Blue Dot. Blue Dot allows you to be able to scan 100,000 media sources. And why is that important? Because Blue Dot was one of the first companies to detect that the pandemic was coming. So it's looking at, things like insect populations, flight data, capacity of healthcare systems, that kind of thing. But this is where AI gets extremely, extremely exciting to me. And then of course with, thermal screening using FLIR cameras, we actually do one of my companies called IREX. We're actually doing some of that now. We do facial recognition with masks. We're 95% accurate. And, today, before, if you used to wear a mask going into a place, they would think you're a thief. Now, if you don't wear it, you're in trouble. What I mean? It's kind of weird, it's like you go into the store and it's like, everybody's got masks on. I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, I went up to the cashier, just to have some fun. I said, doctor. And so, but then, tie in the Internet of Things, and this becomes really interesting. Imagine all the sensors that we can have out there. Imagine smart pills. The first smart pill was approved in 2017. So now having a pill inside of your body that can do detection and understand what's happening at any one point in time, early detection of cancer. I mean, we're right there, right? It's now this is not, is it an issue or not? It is happening. And I've written an article on drug discovery that actually came out of my, I was on a panel for the top pharmaceutical companies in Europe. So not a lot of people know that that Pfizer actually used IBM Watson to help discover their vaccine for COVID. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, because why? When we were on this panel, and I just searched for the research report, I can't find it. I don't think she sent it over yet. But essentially, imagine, traditionally the way that drug discoveries are done is you use bench time. So now with a lot of training data, imagine being able to use the AI and how much faster that gets, and then add, quantum computing, and we got game changers. So think about areas like AR, VR, MR in healthcare, the kind of impact that that's going to have, all kinds of ways, Alzheimer's, surgery, in all kinds of ways. It opens up another dimension of opportunity. Then, of course, blockchain, which we've talked about before. So I'm really bullish across the board, and there's a lot of data out there. If we not only understand the data, but have unsupervised and semi-supervised AI that can act on the data, we can have a profound impact. A few years ago, 6 years ago, I did a project where I took a summer off, and I took MBA students, top MBA students from Russia, and brought them over to Palo Alto. And we worked on a project with some professors from Stanford on living to 120. And it was pretty eye-opening. So those days within your lifetime, our ability to live longer is going to dramatically increase, because one is early detection of the problems, and then being able to go in and, for instance, with cancer, to not destroy all the cells around, to be able to destroy targeted cells. And it's happening quickly. And then also to figure out who's at risk and stop it before it's a problem.
Great. I think in the summary of what I understand with the opening remarks, the pandemic has actually opened up doors for the digital acceleration in the field of healthcare. Telemedicine might not be one of, as Anuj said, telemedicine has been there for a while, but I think that the use of telemedicine came into limelight only because of the pandemic. Karthik is an investor in telemedicine, but Anuj thinks things might just go back to where it was before the pandemic. So what do you think, Karthik? Because you are deep dived into the field, in the sector. What are your thoughts about that? Just let's quickly touch on that, then we move to the next questions.
Telemedicine in its conventional form has outlived its stage, but what telemedicine has evolved into is cybermedicine and remote medication. So for example, if you were to look at per capita, or for every 1,000 people, there are around 12 medical practitioners everywhere in the world. Africa, for every 94,000 residents, has one medical practitioner available. Now that's the gap that we look at across the world. That's one. Second, deploying a radiologist in every location for something basic, which is radiation and image processing, is typically a $6,500 to $7,000 expense per month. Doing that through cybermedicine is a 27-cent expense per patient, which is typically about $1,100 per month, and operating at 100% capacity. More importantly, cybermedicine and telemedicine not only allows, what we look at cybermedicine and telemedicine is the COVID period requirement, wherein a patient is not able to go to a clinic and consult with the doctor on a phone or on a Zoom call, which is a very temporary arrangement. But what we are not able to bring in is making all 47, 48 specialties of medicine or surgery available in every part of the world, and conducting a little more than 3.7 million surgeries that get done every day across the world is impossible with the kind of medical bandwidth and the complications that come in. For example, now with robotics and AI coming, or AR coming in, a lot of surgical procedures which are secondary and tertiary laparoscopically are done through are being worked on through robotics from remote medication, which means people sitting in the different parts of the world today are able to perform non-invasive or partially invasive laparoscopic surgeries remotely. And that is where the science or the field of medicine is moving in. You do not need to necessarily have everybody available everywhere, but the medical treatment and medical care can be provided through a doctor sitting in some other part of the world, consulting or partially working alongside a semi-skilled or a skilled medical professional in another part of the world, and which is where the entire democratizing of healthcare is happening. For example, if you take a country like India with 1.3 billion population, it's going to be absolutely difficult to find a doctor in every city and every district. And hence, cybermedicine, if applied through the right route with a very strong supply chain for medical dispensation, would make it all the more easily accessible. And Middle East now has tied up with 7 nations at Dubai. UAE has tied up with 7 nations in Africa to make sure that it becomes a secondary source of treatment compared to making that medication done through either semi-skilled or unskilled practitioners in that part of the world. Getting it done through remote medicine from another part of the world is far more effective and far cost efficient.
Yeah.
So we as a business believe that investing and letting it evolve in the right space is only going to make it all the more democratized and all the more far-fetched. And adding to what Gary has been saying, and I completely believe in the power of data that healthcare has brought in the last 15 years, and maybe with telemedicine, it's only going to increase. We looked at pandemic from a very curative point of view. The world realized pandemic only after it became a known phenomenon and people started dying across the world. However, if we are able to forecast weather, if we are able to forecast seasons, we are also able to forecast pandemics. It's just about trying to put the right markers and indicators. So if one were to see the propensity of cold per capita, if one were to see the propensity of lung infection per capita suddenly increasing in a particular region, particular geography, and getting the right feelers about where the personal health in markers are moving, it is very easy to predict and it is very easy to analyze and forecast a particular pandemic coming in even before it becomes a phenomenon in its own self. And that is what the entire data is going to work upon. Even bringing in blockchain as blockchain into, and Gary would know more about this than all of us put together, bringing blockchain and AI into this is making the insurance companies build in an element of accountability by putting in algorithms to make sure that either their insurance liabilities or insurance claims and patient lifecycle management are optimized in the right manner. So while I see telemedicine, to sum it up, while I see telemedicine to be a future, I see data coming through millions of human interactions on a cyber platform, adding to it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karthik, for sharing those. Anuj, want to share something very quickly after you. Anuj, go ahead, please.
So, adding on to what Karthik said, I mean, I partially agree with you and I partially disagree with you. I agree on that one front that telemedicine in its current form is not going to survive. The whole notion when an entrepreneur comes up with the idea, oh, I'm going to set up a system where doctor can communicate with over a video call with patients in a remote village. While in theory that's a brilliant idea, it's really hard to process it because one of the reasons why that has not yet happened is the lack of infrastructure. And that's not changing anytime soon. The key factor then comes in differentiating. Karthik absolutely said this perfectly, that a doctor can't be everywhere. So the future is going to be in terms of remote diagnosis, where the key question is not what's wrong with me or what am I going through, but the key question is, this is my diagnosis, what's next? So when a patient communicates with a doctor, when they go to a local clinic and identify, oh, it's probably something neurological, the question then arises, how do I get to an MRI machine? That factor is where the whole innovation comes in, with respect to remote teleradiology labs, where a radiologist might be sitting somewhere, but making sure that we can set up a mobile lab that's moving across a region. That's where you have innovation. That's where you have patients coming in who need that product, who can actually use it and get some benefit off of it. Another factor which I want to add on to it would be in terms of data. While at a personal level, we have always fantasized having that data, one of the biggest repository of that data has always been data that comes from the government's sources. For example, census. That's always helped companies make sure they market their product right, that they plan for the future. Likewise, when a country like India, where the government announces a national electronic health card for all its citizens, imagine 1.3 billion people going on a database where you have all of their medical history, you have their vaccination records. Now, for a private company to come in at this point in time and say, hey, we have the vaccination records, we understand your history. However, we are going to add on to it by also making sure that we are digitizing your OPD records, by making sure that we are digitizing your X-ray films, creating a PAC system for you, and by keeping track of your major hospitalizations, major healthcare events. Doing that, not only can you predict what the user is going to go through, but also predict what could happen 2 or 3 decades later. Take an example for hyperthyroidism. Anyone suffering from it, if it goes undiagnosed, would develop enlargement of heart in a matter of 5 to 7 years, leading to their life expectancy dropping by 10 to 12 years. Likewise, for tuberculosis, which is still a major problem in Africa and Southeast Asia, anyone who recovers from it would develop lung calcification, which can burst 2 or 3 decades later and can cause internal bleeding in lungs. Uh, COVID, most recent of that example, 20% of people recovering from it are actually developing a form of mental illness, be it depression, anxiety, or something of that sort. So we are at a cusp of a mental health crisis, of a public health crisis. So the idea in that sense for have the conventional medical system in which a patient is just interacting with a user one-to-one is not going to survive. It has to have that personalization effect where not only are you having that conversation, not only are you getting that consultation, but you are also making sure you're preparing the system in such a way that even setting up a healthcare ecosystem that 5 years, 10 years down the line, if my user is going to need anything, if the patient's going to need anything, it should be prepared for them, and it should be able, it should be communicated to them that, hey, your diagnosis was 10 years ago. You probably want to go out to a doctor right now and have it checked out, make sure you're still okay.
Right.
That's where personalization and telemedicine 2.0 would be for me.
Yeah, thank you, Anuj. I agree to the infrastructure challenges that you mentioned just right in the beginning, the lack of the infrastructure, especially in the remote villages. I don't know how that is going to solve. Maybe 5G can solve that once we have it. And Karthik wanted to add quickly. After that, we move to Fabio and Gary after that. Karthik, you want to add something to what Anuj said?
Last word on to this is, so unlike travel, unlike hospitality, unlike e-commerce, and unlike luxury, healthcare and education will always be a part of the social commerce, governmental commerce, and core economic projects in the business. And hence, we might not be able to look at it from a purely entrepreneurial or a venture capitalist point of view, but from a very social point of view. We need to address the lopsided development across the world. Trust me, when we are talking about MRI machines, when we are talking about remote sensing, we belong to the haves part of the world who have access to insurance cards and can get a surgery done, elective surgery done in no time. But telemedicine, cyber medicine, and remote medicine primarily addresses countries that do not see doctors for miles and miles together. And for them, I believe something is better than having nothing on the table. And any business that is able to democratize and make a medical practice reach to the have-nots at an affordable cost from a very social point of view is the one that primarily is likely to succeed. While we would have a lot of AI-based businesses, medical advancements that Boston Memorial comes up and publishes a journal every week, I think there is a part of the world that still doesn't have medical facilities available. And such developments are only going to make it more democratic and available to them. That's where we continue to invest in this space.
I agree, Karthik.
Before you move on, I just want to add one final thought. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry I'm taking your time. But preach, Karthik. I mean, one line that he said, healthcare is a human right. It's about time everyone realized it. It's probably a controversial thing for me to say right now, but about time this year made people realize healthcare is actually a human right. So yeah, over to you, Sunny.
Good. We can continue this on a different panel, and I can get you both on to continue this discussion. Why not? Thank you so much, Karthik and Anuj, for sharing those differentiating yet one view. Fabio, I'd like to ask you, what are the new models that have emerged in these sectors that we're talking about today, and what kind of investments have gone into these sectors?
In terms of models, I don't detect any earth-shaking innovation. I mean, we are still in the within the framework of studying a new drug or a new treatment, testing it on animals, then moving to testing it on humans, and then starting the various phases for the approval. There is what I do see. I mean, from my viewpoint, I see a huge number of new drugs that are being tested, and often for the solution of key problems like antibiotics of new generation to treat those infections that are resistant to traditional antibiotics, treatment for Alzheimer, which do not focus on the brain but on the gastro apparatus. A lot of effort is made in devices like remote surgery, unmanned medical assistants, and so on and so forth. We need to be careful though, because unlike other areas of IT, the healthcare sector is heavily regulated, so innovation is not permissionless. Everything has to be vetted and allowed by a government authority. This slows down the innovation. And I don't know, even even telemedicine, even the simplest thing like having a consultation with a general practitioner via Zoom might not be allowed. I mean, if the general practitioner...
Is it allowed? I just want to ask, is it allowed via Zoom? Because Fabio has a point. It's a heavily regulated space. So is consultation over Zoom actually allowed?
I'm not sure. A lot of parts of the world don't allow consultation. There are regulatory procedures which allow private channels, encrypted channels, data privacy regulations, transfer of information, transfer of patient records is heavily controlled in this space. Any open network is completely banned, especially in Europe and in Middle East. Completely not allowed.
Right.
But if you do, I mean, even if it were allowed, okay, let's presume that it's allowed, and a doctor gives you an advice via Zoom, so without actually touching your body. Say, I have a headache. The doctor gives you, I don't know, aspirin, and then it turns out that it's something different. I'm sure that the malpractice laws will be devastating for the career of that doctor. Because a judge will say, hey, you haven't adopted the right procedure, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. So that's what I'm saying. We have, even as investors, we must be aware of these difficulties, of these impediments, of these obstacles, because they are the key element, the crucial factor that will determine the success of innovation in this area.
Right. Thank you, Fabio. Innovation comes with regulations and government support. Obviously, they have to vet it, as you rightly said, and Karthik said these are some of the challenges as well. Gary, what's your thought about that? I mean, we hear like two perspectives here, but there are still challenges if I see it.
Yeah, I mean, but look at what's happening around us. I mean, it's creeping in. It's like the beginning of the 20th century, and Nikola Tesla just discovered and started this movement towards alternating current. I mean, look at all the changes that took place. We're at the time right now, similar to what happened with the Model T, where people had horses and cars, and people said, why would I ever get a car? I have a horse. I can feed the horse. I know that it's going to be out there every day, but look how the world's changed. So we're in a dramatic digital transformative stage, and it can't be stopped, right? It's moving forward. If you asked anybody in the panel, would you want to live longer if you had a quality of life? There's nobody here that's going to say no. And so those kind of things are happening today. But when I was here, the report that's going to be in FW that I was worked on for artificial intelligence and drug discovery, it's here, right? And so yes, there are issues, there are privacy issues, et cetera. But if you ask anybody about, there's HIPAA requirements, but we also, now we bring things like blockchain into the picture, artificial intelligence into the picture, and the amount of data that medical professionals, think about it. The amount of data is increasing at 61, 62% per year. So we're inundated. But the other thing, that data is good because now we can make some decisions based on analyzing that data and making the drug therapies better, diagnosis better. I'll tell you one project at Stanford University looked at melanoma, and using computer vision, being able to analyze melanoma skin cancer. And it was better than if you took the combined opinion of 23, 24 top professionals. This was able to diagnose better than all of them combined, right? And so what's happening? Imagine for telemedicine today. Look at where we are, like literally right now today in the United States, we've got record numbers of COVID right now. People are dying. People are not, the lockdowns in California, you can't go out after 10 o'clock at night. And at the same time, they need medical treatment and care. It's really, and my wife yesterday was on the phone with a doctor yesterday. I mean, it's here, right? It's like, not because you want to do something differently, it's because you have to do it. So the other thing is, if I could get the best professional in the world to be able to talk to me about whatever issue, and they're located in India or in Singapore, in China, in Russia, wherever, I don't really care if I can get the best. So I wrote an article called Nikola Tesla's Dream Comes True, the democratization of opportunity. And that's where it is. We've now got a more level playing field where we can access skills better than any time in the past. We now got to go down through and use the blockchain, use technology to be able to make our privacy, make it protected. But at the same time, we can't use it to limit where we're going to go as a society. We're going to live longer. The target now is not 120 like what I did 5 years ago. It's 150, right? And that's the new target. So, and all the pieces are starting to convene, whether it's stem cells, whether it's drug discovery. I mean, look at it, Sanofi, Genentech, IBM Watson. I mean, a lot of what's happened on the COVID side has come out of using AI modeling, right? And not having that bench time, because we had to think about it. We had to create in months, we had to go down through and create a vaccine that could have taken years, right?
Yeah.
And well, the other side of it, there's billions, if not trillions of dollars involved, because whoever gets it out is going to make a lot of money, right? So it's going to drive the research. So I'm excited about what's going on, and it's not, from my standpoint, it's not going to hold us back. What it's doing is pushing us forward. Our society has taken a quantum leap forward in the last year. Look at it, Sonny. Here we are in VCTV. If we would have talked about a year ago, people would have said, and I remember the conferences that Valentin had in California, et cetera. We would have been at conferences. I'll see you in 3 months. Here, we're going to get together. People would have spent a lot of money, polluted the air, but here we are, right? Highly, highly efficient.
Great points. To Fabio's points, if I'm having a headache, I'm consulting a doctor, and if that's the wrong diagnosis, but to counter that, I think the data which is collected, the predictive analysis done by AI would solve that problem. I'm saying that's what I'm getting from this
Well,
discussion.
the data is going to give you, there's two pieces, right? And now I'm talking about not smart, but intelligent assistants. Absolutely. Because you get super expert opinions, right? And you get flagged faster when there's a problem. So imagine being, today with your blood analysis, imagine to be able to figure out if there's an interaction instantly. I mean, these are coming. It's incredible, actually. And so on one side of it, the doctors have had to make decisions on their own. On the other side, now they've got these super intelligent AI assistants, if you will, to be able to give them some insights, key insights. And soon be able to make their own decisions, by the way. So, we're going to unsupervised AI where we're going to have decisions made. You won't need to have a doctor. Your doctor will be Dr. Hal, like in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Unsupervised AI.
If I can add on that, I completely agree with you that I personally would trust more an AI program than a general practitioner.
Exactly.
By a factor of 100.
Exactly.
However, would you bet against me when I say that the medical profession will be that determined to avoid the spread of these AI systems?
Well, I mean, I would say that, but I just was on a panel in Europe. And so I thought the same as you think. And yet I had the top pharmaceutical companies pushing for this. Why? Because there's money, right? And
but the pharmaceutical companies for sure. But the Doctors Association, the American Medical Association, the American Cardiology Association, whatever, I'm sure they will be fighting a war against this, because what does it mean? It means that all the doctor, the family doctor will be gone.
Well, I mean, what I think is going to happen is that the doctors will have the expert systems, and the insurance companies will require them to have it to reduce the liability, so they don't make the wrong decisions. So, being a doctor is not an easy task, right? You get hundreds of patients all the time. It's hard making a decision. You get sleepy, you got, and having that data at the fingertips is going to be a whole lot easier to be able for a doctor to make a decision. And I think the way it'll be couched is that there'll be intelligent assistants that can aid them to be able to make better decisions. And if it's couched that way, I'm sure the insurance companies will force them to do it, and the doctors will want to do it because they can see more patients and reduce the risk and have a better opinion.
That's the point, because I've seen the doctors in accident and emergency, the A&E section. Oh my God. I mean, it's chaotic.
Yeah, exactly. It's chaotic. And the thing is, it's like it's like a fire drill where you have people coming out, and they don't even know what they're doing, and it's kind of creepy. So now imagine having systems to be able to guide you. I'm not saying it's going to today, in the next 20 years, we're going to be independent of, and the systems will make their own decisions, but we will have these not smart, but intelligent assistants that'll help us in all kinds of ways. Because imagine all the data you can get. You can pull it from everywhere, right? And so you can look at somebody's blood, you could look at their history and make instant decisions. You wouldn't have to wait, 3 weeks. You could make the decisions, and then specific surgery and cancer exactly for those cells, not to destroy everything that's around it, but in the cells. Smart pills that are inside your body, monitoring everything and catching it before it becomes a problem, right?
Absolutely. Agree. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. Very enriching for myself as a person, and obviously our audience as well. I would like to take 2 questions from each of you before we finish this show. The closing remarks for the topic, and the best VCT. We are collecting the best VCTV moments in 2020 for you, because you've been on our panels more than once. So I'd like to start with Fabio.
Well, every the last moment is always the best, right? No, jokes apart. No, I always enjoy when I'm with Gary on a panel, because really I learn a lot. It gives me this perspective that are really enriching. So that's I vote for the for Gary's presence on the show as the best moment for me, at least.
I'm humbled, Fabio. Thank you. I don't deserve it. I'm really humbled.
No, but I say it. I'm the frank, and I don't need to be,
That moment for you,
to
Gary.
praise anybody. But actually, I do enjoy when you're on the show with me, because it turns out to be extremely interesting all the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Fabio, sharing that. Anuj, closing remarks and the best BCTV moments in 2020. We can't hear you.
Yeah, closing remarks. Like I've said, this year is a groundbreaking year for MedTech, for medicine, for public health, and for almost every industry. Moving forward, I think one approach that's necessary, not just for medical companies, but for every company, would be a design thinking approach. I was smiling when Fabio was mentioning about the backlash that they're going to face from doctors, and I think he's absolutely right about it. That's why I'm not very bullish on telemedicine, because there will be that backlash in telemedicine as well. But moving forward, I hope one thing that can be achieved is a design thinking approach globally, where you are not just taking your patients as the center, or not just your users as the center, but you're taking every industry around it into consideration when you're developing a product. The best product that comes out is something that elevates the entire industry. It doesn't seek to replace an existing product. So a good product would not be that would say, hey, I would remove OPD, you can get everything online, but would be something that can elevate that experience that already exists. So any company that's doing that would probably be the winner for me. Sharing my best moment, I think I would take another page from Fabio here. I had a chance to meet the Grandmaster himself. He said this countless times that he's seen me a lot of times. Mate, it's an honor to see you every time I'm on this panel, and trust me, I learned something new from you. So yeah, thank you so much for being here, man. I think it's wonderful meeting you and other wonderful people on this panel, and it's been a great journey.
Excellent. Thank you, Anuj. Again, another fan, Gary. Besides me, obviously. Karthik, over to you. Closing remarks and the best BCTV moments for you in 2020.
Closing remarks, I would say, I think a sunrise industry, all of us would continue to be invested, and we would really look for that one chip that controls the entire human body. I expect that somebody in 5 years would come up with a chip that would manage the entire human body. I would also expect contactless injections, contactless surgeries, robots performing childbirth. And if somebody were to do a beam me up, Scotty, I would be happy to invest in his business. So that's where I see this business going. And in terms of my best moments on VCTV, I have a very different take. Had VCTV not happened, a lot of investors wouldn't have found options to reach out to startups, and startups wouldn't have found options to reach out to investors. So I think you bridging the gap, and you're doing a beautiful job of that. Had you traveled across the world, you would have met us once in 3 months, once in 6 months, and people would have been able to do, I mean, 1 or 2 investors or 1 or 2 startups would have been able to showcase their talent. Today, 7 days a week, practically 2 shows every day, 15 opportunities for people to showcase their talent, and people to learn something. People get a chance to learn something. For me personally, I guess I am getting enriched every time I come on the show. What I learn from all of you together is a lot more than what I would have been able to put on the table. So for me, it's a humbling experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karthik, and thank you so much. I really, appreciate your participation every day on our shows, like twice a day. Today you were with Terence as well before, and I agree to what you said. Absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't have met each other every day. Impossible. Totally impossible. And that's why the platform is here, and we are meeting every day. And thank you so much for those closing remarks and the best moments on VCTV for this year. But yeah, that doesn't mean that we are stopping here. We are still continuing our sessions throughout this month. Last but not least, I have Gary. Gary, again, what's your closing remarks? And because I think Gary has been most on our shows than others, I think, because he does here Asia with Terence, me, and then with Kyle as well.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Gary deserves to be on all these panels. Mate, the spotlight's all on you.
I don't know what to say. I mean, it's great to be here, Sunny. I know from the beginning when this started with VCTV and on the shows with Kyle, people were really afraid around the world. It was a shock to the system, and was really good feeling to be on these shows and to connect with everybody. Anuj, Karthik, Fabio, yourself, Kyle, Terrence. It's been amazing. And I mean, I was just counting out, I've done hundreds of VCTV shows now. And I do about 16 shows, including my own stuff every week. And for me also, it's great. I learned so much from every one of the panelists. And quite frankly, during these challenging times, it feels like a family environment. We share ideas. You know, it's almost like coffee hour or happy hour, right? And you get to share ideas and you learn a lot and you make incredible connections. I can't tell you how many amazing connections, even here, just on our panel, right, that we've been able to make, and how much it's helped different aspects of my business. I found incredible startups, incredible AI startups. I've met, family offices from around the world, some of the wealthiest family offices. I mean, later today, tomorrow, I have a call with Richard Branson's partner because I met one of his persons on VCTV, and I'm asking Branson to be on my show. So, I mean, it's at that level. I love it. I think it's an amazing opportunity to share information. I'm happy that Zoom, I remember in the beginning of this thing when people were laughing about it. Here we are able to communicate around the world, to make a little difference, to bring humanity to one another, to be able to show, that it's almost like touching souls, right? You share these ideas and have fun. So I love it. And in terms of, we're in a great age, the age of data, and to make incredible decisions. Artificial intelligence is literally going down through, permeate all areas of our life. And specifically in health tech, to have better decisions made faster is incredibly important for us. So I love it. And I'm encouraged to see all the great things that VCTV does. And you're a wonderful host, and I'm honored to be here and honored to have all my incredible partners and fellow panel members every day. So thank you.
Thank you so much. You have made my day today, honestly. All of you, after listening to all of you, I mean, the best VCTV moments. I mean, I enjoy this every day. I mean, literally, I mean, I don't have any words to express how enjoyable this experience has been for me personally since I started meeting you all people and hosting this show. And my knowledge, like the level of knowledge about every sector that we speak about and I get to hear, has just double, tripled, I don't know how many quadrupled times. So I have to admit, thank you so much for making it so engaging, informative, fun as well. The element is always there, Gary. So thank you so much for your time. Again, we are planning something very unique for the Christmas and New Year's. Happy hours ideas came from you, Gary. Probably we'll work on that. And yes, please, viewers, stay tuned. We are not stopping the shows. We're going to be running the shows throughout this month. So again, speakers and investors who like to share the space and meet entrepreneurs and founders, please reach out to me and I'm happy to have you on board. Having said that, it's almost time. It's nearly, yeah, it's time. And thank you so much and have a great day, great evening. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we connect again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So much.